I'm a little annoyed because my secret is out. Whatever I get a call or a text from a number I don't know or someone I don't want to talk to, I always say, "Nice try, bro. Now lose my number."
Lose this number.
And Aaron, I know that Aaron has texted me that he's texted me before, and I've said to him, "Nice try, bro. Lose my number." So I feel like he's just stole my thing,
Sure.
used it on Shefty, and now it's blown up. And I got to find a new angle. Like I got to figure out what I'm going to say to telemarketers when they try to text me or call me. When I get like, "Hey, this candidate wants your support. Please donate here." Now what I'm going to say, I have to say like, "Excuse me, but kindly bleep off." Like, I don't know. Now I'm going to have to go a different angle.
Yeah, you're like, I'm trying to be as nice as possible about it. I mean, just
Lose
get the
my
hell out
number.
of here. Just
Lose my number. And now it's like everyone's going to do that because Rodgers texted the Shefty, and now I'm just got to, I feel a little violated. I got to be honest.
Well, hey, it's that was one of the many dominoes to fall, if you will, of the last couple days. So that's why we for most of you listening know we do this usually on Mondays, and we'll post it either Monday or Tuesday most times. But I mean, with this free agency scramble, we had to push things out, and glad we did for today on a Wednesday because of that Aaron Rodgers decision, or whatever you want to call it, on the Pat McAfee show earlier today, which was funny. Mark, that got, I mean, I don't know what the exact peak views was, but last when I checked, because I have, of course, tuned in, sure you did, was about 450,000 people.
Yeah, close to half a million
YouTube
viewers.
Show. That's incredible. Like that's, that blows any like cable news network out of the water, I'm sure. For any sort of like programming like that, everyone just wanting to hear what Aaron Rodgers had to say. I did, and that's why we're gonna stick on that here for a few minutes, because I'd like to get your take on it. I'd like to kind of speak about him saying that he wants to play for the Jets, and that decision has been made. Of course, we're gonna get to all of the free agency craziness that has occurred over the last 48 hours. We're also going to talk big time about the Bears trading the number 1 overall pick to the Carolina Panthers. Lots of implications there, lots of crazy stuff going on with that. But we'll start with the most recent and prevalent news, which is the Aaron Rodgers news that apparently the darkness retreat didn't get him to the point necessarily of deciding on being with the Jets. Just got him really close, and then he did eventually come to the decision. I think he said this past Friday, making it official in his mind that he was ready to go and be a New York Jet. The framing of it, Mark, was interesting, and no, we wouldn't expect anything less out of Aaron Rodgers to make it. Well, Green Bay clearly wanted to move on, so I was like, fine, I'll move on. I'm like, can this guy just admit that he wanted to move on too? And he's wanted to move on somewhat for quite some time. I know he loves the Packers. I'm not saying that he hates the organization. He loves being a Packer. He loves the legacy they've created there and loves the fans and everything about it. That doesn't mean, though, that he hasn't been stringing them along for years and kind of feeling things out and maybe, seeing what other opportunities are out there. It's just bizarre that even at this point where it appears the guy's going to get everything he wants, still got to kind of make it be Green Bay's fault, essentially.
So I have a ton of thoughts on this. Let's start with what I actually thought of what he just said and did on McAfee. I mean, it was like a Yelp review live stream. He was like Yelp reviewing his employer, and I mean, he was ripping apart basically Gutekunst and the current like leadership of the Packers, and saying basically, "Oh, how the good old days, what it used to be." I also think the biggest thing for Aaron, what he did in this moment, was he tried to basically shift the narrative now to saying to 500,000 people live, and now the whole world talking about it and his reaction. He basically said, look, this is probably going to get messy. It's probably not going to get done anytime soon. And so I want you all to know it's not my fault. It's not my fault.
Right.
I've told the Jets I want to be a Jet. I told them last Friday. I told the Packers I want to be a Jet. I told them as of last Friday those are my intentions. And now it's them. They have to figure it out. I'm out of it. I've washed my hands. And so when you're still wondering why this deal hasn't got done, I don't know. Talk to the big bad Green Bay Packers. They want too much. I just want to play in New York with my friends Alan Lazard and Cobb and Odell Beckham and David Bakhtiari and Mercedes Lewis. That's all I want. It's all I'm asking for. I'm not the bad guy. So I think that was so much of what this was. It was setting up the fact that I think Aaron, if you want me to go back further, I have a huge theory that I've heard no one else say, and I'm surprised it's not getting talked about more. I think Aaron Rodgers truly wanted to retire. He said he was 90% retired before the retreat. I think he truly,
and I do believe that. I do buy that was his plan.
And I think he was going to until Tom Brady said he retired. And when Tom Brady announced his retirement, I think Aaron went into bleep mode. Like Aaron Rodgers' ego is way too big to be retired the same year that Tom Brady retired. Because they're both
that's
first
a fair
ballot
point.
Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
And as soon as Tom said he's retiring, I think that changed the narrative completely for Aaron. And Aaron had to figure out, crap, I got to play. What are we going to do? And I think in that moment, he knew the Packers had all the power and the leverage. The Packers have all the leverage here. They are 100% done with him. They are going to play Jordan Love. They're going to give it 1 year run with Jordan Love. And they're actually in a really good spot because if Jordan Love stinks, they can say, listen, we gave him a year. We don't have to pick up his 5th year. And now we're all in on the trading in the court for getting a new quarterback. And in the time they had Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers won 2 MVPs. They had an NFC championship game, another playoff run. Like it wasn't unsuccessful, the Jordan Love pick and era, you could argue. And so I think the Packers they have all the power here. And if Jordan Love is great or even good, they can say, good, we'll pick up the 5th year option, but they don't have to give him a giant contract yet. They're going to be quarterback cheap for that 2-year window as they deal with the cap hell that Aaron is them put themselves in. So I think that to me is the biggest thing. I think Aaron Rodgers, if Tom Brady was playing this year, Aaron Rodgers would be done. Aaron Rodgers I think he'd be retired and he would be walking away and going on to whatever he wants. But I think he knows because of the giant contract he signed, his options were very, very limited. The needle had to be thread. And I think you saw so many teams, the Titans and other teams that we thought would be interested in Aaron, basically saying, listen, we don't want to deal with this contract and we don't want to deal with the moodiness. The Jets are such a bad organization. They're willing to deal with it. So I think it's really fascinating. Now, will the Packers hold out until June 1st when they can save a lot of money? And I think if they keep Aaron, trade him after June 1st, it takes like $10 million off their dead cap, which is great. But I don't think it's worth necessarily that $10 million. I don't think it's worth missing out on draft picks for this current draft. Because I think the Packers obviously want to trade him before the draft. But I think this thing could go on for a long time. It's going to be kind of basically a standoff, and Aaron's going to be on McAfee every week going, I don't know what's wrong. This is so mean of them to do this to me. Poor me. Woe is me. There used to be transparency. That's all I want is transparency, said the guy who basically lied about his immunization. He's the king of no transparency.
Incredibly ironic. Incredibly ironic.
My final
the guy who was as wishy-washy with what he was going to do for the last 5 years.
And good for Aaron in the sense that he was able to work it out to getting a giant payday last year. And if he plays this year and next year, giant paydays, and good for him for doing that. But he's really put himself in a tough scenario because there is a real scenario where the Jets just go, we're not doing it. We're not giving you what you want. And we're moving on to the draft or someone else in the quarterback market, maybe Lamar Jackson. Who knows? He can start actually negotiating like right now as we're recording this at 3:20 Central Time, 4:20 Eastern Time on this 3:15. Lamar Jackson can finally start talking because I know it's the legal tampering, but he doesn't have an agent, so You can't talk to a player if they represent themselves because that's just tampering.
Right.
So who knows what'll happen with that? And there's a real scenario where Aaron Rodgers is left without a paddle, and the Packers just say, "Fine, we'll just eat your cap hit, but we're going to start Jordan Love anyways. You figure out what you want, Aaron." And so I don't know. This saga is far from over. We'll talk about this a ton more, so I know we're not going to waste a ton of time on it. But I think the biggest thing you could take of it is my true feeling is that Aaron Rodgers, if Tom Brady were playing, he'd be retired. Since he's not, and he's going to play, he's not going to retire the same year Tom is. The Jets are his best and only option. He is, and now he's trying to put the onus on the Packers, the bad guys, not me. I want to play for New York, and they're preventing it from happening for some God-forsaken reason.
Yeah, I echo a lot of those sentiments. I do think that, the Jets hold all the cards at this point in determining what they want to do with the situation. I know there's been a lot of talk like they wouldn't have gotten Nathaniel Hackett or Alan Lazard if they weren't getting Aaron Rodgers. I don't agree with that personally. I think that would be malpractice to do something like that in a significant coaching move like that in particular. I think Alan Lazard is a really quality player. That would be a great signing regardless of who you're trying to, woo to your team. Now, if the Randall Cobb thing happens, or for instance, the Mercedes Lewis signing, those are more indicative to me of, okay, we're trying to like sweeten the pot to get Aaron Rodgers to come on because those guys are at, beyond the tail end of their careers and are probably good locker room guys, but don't necessarily bring a whole lot to the roster itself. So yeah, from that aspect, I think that, they're going to, probably want to work a deal with Rodgers, but they're not completely hamstrung by it if they're not able to get, something that's fair for them on top of what's fair for the Green Bay Packers in this situation. So it's a waiting game right now. I do agree with you. It's going to take some time, most likely. We have 6 weeks until the draft. So I imagine it's going to happen at some point within the next 6 weeks, but it could be 5 days. It could be, 20. We just won't know until we know. And that's kind of the holding pattern that we're all left in right now with this whole thing. But, of course, Aaron Rodgers, wanting to, own the narrative and be the guy that kind of controls the situation out in the media from this aspect. And that's why maybe things that were being leaked maybe weren't as, accurate or from his camp, so to speak, because he keeps himself so insular in that regard. But it is, I would be remiss if I didn't, also point out the irony in the fact that this is a guy who is really upset about all of the rumor mill reports that he claims are out there. And yet when the reporters reach out to him directly, he's the first one to say, F off. I don't want to talk to anybody. It's like, well, hey man, they're trying to get it from the source. You're not, saying anything. So, what more do you want them to do? They're going to go with their sources and what they're being told from their, personal connections. So it is what it is.
I think part of that is my final thought on that would just be, I think Aaron knows his legacy is really changed over the last couple of years, and it's really taken a hit. I mean, there was 5 years ago, there's legitimate discussion that Aaron Rodgers is a top 3 quarterback of all time. I think we all can sit here and agree that if you have Aaron Rodgers in your top 3, you're stretching it, and you're playing a very narrow, just arm talent, big playability type of thing. There's way more to quarterbacking than just that. Leadership, big time wins and big time moments. You know what I mean? And I think Aaron is trying to set this stage now of trying to be like, I think Aaron, when he retires officially, will stand a lot on the shoulders of what he's done the last couple of years of being like, guys, like young quarterbacks, take my advice. Don't let ESPN control the narrative. Don't let them do this. You don't have to talk to your local reporters. Go only on the podcasts and the people you trust. There are good people out there. Like, I think he's trying to build up this thing of like, look at my lasting legacy that I've done.
Yeah, yeah,
Don't
he's trying to be a pioneer in that regard.
Going to New York will help him with that, because watch what he does with the media when he's with the Jets. I think he's going to be so prickly, so careful, so like, oh, gotcha. What? Oh, you said this, but I said this. I think so much that's going to build up his legacy as well. Be like, let me show you how to control your narrative and don't let them spin it. Listen, Aaron is the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And I hope if I'm a Jets fan, I really hope you call the bluff of the Packers and you hold off as long as you can, to where I would be willing to give up this year's first round pick and maybe a future, fourth or fifth or something like that. But otherwise, keep your draft intact, keep next year's draft intact, keep the following year's draft intact, because you're probably going to only have Aaron for a year, maybe two. And you cannot give up the Matthew Stafford, Russell Wilson deal. You just can't. He doesn't. You've looked out at the longevity of those deals. The Rams got a Super Bowl, so it was worth it. And now for the Broncos, they are in crisis mode with Russell and that contract. So the Jets, I think they got to be really smart. And if you're the Packers, I think in the end they will take less, but I think they're willing to just deal with the awkwardness of this, because they're just like, screw it, whatever. We don't owe you anything to get you to the Jets ASAP. We don't owe you that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with all of what you said right there. In terms of the implications on the field, I mean, clearly for the Jets, this is, we have to, we're trying to get to the Super Bowl now. Yeah. I mean, they gotta. There's literally no upside here outside of winning a Super Bowl, because you're gonna commit to this guy for a year, like you said, or maybe two. They don't have a whole lot of ability, at least in the short term this year, to go up and try and get a rookie quarterback. So it's really going to be about next year's draft. Are they going to be able to position themselves to get the future? Because clearly it's not in Zach Wilson. That's going to be the big question mark, is what do the Jets do if this doesn't pan out? Because the Tom Brady move to Tampa looks a lot different if they don't get that ring. I mean, the fact that they got the ring, it's like it didn't matter what happened in the last two seasons, because he got done what was expected of him to get done, going and making that move, and that's why it was worth it for them.
Yeah.
In the converse, I mean, the Buccaneers were a little bit older of a team. They were ready to win now. The Jets have a very talented team, but they're pretty young across the board. So really, it's trying to, pair Rodgers' elite talent with young, rookie contract guys. Curious to see how that compares to like what happened in Tampa with Tom. But really, they got to compete and win now. And good luck, because Tom had the NFC South to compete with and the NFC in general. And now if you're Aaron Rodgers and you get to New York, you got a pretty difficult AFC East, which the Dolphins certainly got better. We'll talk about that. The Bills are not going anywhere, and the Patriots probably got better as well. And not to mention just a tough road in general in the AFC. So they're certainly, if they do make this deal, banking on something to happen this year or next at the very least. And I'm not so sure it happens. It certainly makes them a contender and puts them in the conversation. Yeah. But it's going to be a very difficult road for them nonetheless.
Totally.
So moving on now, obviously 4:00 Eastern time. So a half hour ago was the official start of free agency. Yeah. But of course, as we know, especially in recent years, the legal tampering period and discussions and negotiations began on Monday. So really, we've had 2 full days of news breaking on who was actually going to be signed to which team. They just can't formally sign until today as of 4:00 Eastern time. So we have a lot of news about what happened. But even before that, Mark, we had the news breaking late last week on the Bears trading the first overall pick. A little bit of a shocker. I did not expect it to happen this early.
Me either.
And it was certainly a shocker in terms of the compensation, because the Carolina Panthers proved to be a very willing partner in this negotiation by giving up not only their number 9 pick this year, so an even swap there of first round draft picks, but giving up a second rounder for this year, and then a first rounder next year, and a second rounder again in 2025. And if that wasn't great package deal alone, the Bears also get 25-year-old DJ Moore, a top-end receiver, certainly a number 1 quality receiver in the league, at only 25 years old with plenty of experience. Obviously, he'd been talked about having 3 straight 1,200-yard receiving seasons from 2019 to 2021, the only receiver to do that. He now, gives Fields a pure number 1, and all of a sudden that receiver room looks pretty intact with Chase Claypool and Darnell Mooney. But on top of that, the Bears still stay inside the top 10, as we had talked about, with what would be the best package deal for them. Stay inside the top 10, get picks for the future, and on top of it, they get a quality young receiver. I can imagine for you as a Bears fan, you were probably floored and very pleased with how this whole thing turned out.
Elated. I mean, beyond elated. The only negative response I saw to it, and I think there's a little bit of water to this, is that, well, if the Bears had done the whole trade from 1 to 4 and then trade from 4 to like 9 or something like that, if
sure,
in a world, maybe you could have got a couple more draft picks, but
that's a big if.
You get DJ Moore, that to me trumps all of it. And the reports are that at the combine, the Panthers were willing to offer the 9th, 2024 and 2025 first rounders plus the 2023 this year's second rounder. That they wanted 2 first rounders. They were going to go 2024 and 2025. You can have it. And Poles said, don't call me again until you have DJ Moore in that trade. The Panthers decided, they picked up the phone and said, we will do the deal that they got done. And Poles said, boom, here you go. I think.
And which, for the naysayers out there, DJ Moore would absolutely be a top 13 pick in any of these drafts. Probably top 10 easily.
DJ
Phenomenal.
Moore is statistically the greatest receiver in Chicago Bears history. If he had played his whole career.
He is. If he had his career. That's true.
DJ Moore has played with bad quarterbacks in his career. It's not like the Panthers. It's not like he played with prime Cam Newton. I mean, look who he's played with: Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield,
PJ Walker,
Walker, an old Cam Newton. And so it is beyond exciting. And he's young and he's entering his prime and he's cost controlled. 3 years, under $18 million a year for the next 3 years with DJ Moore. So I love it because it looks now as though we're going to get probably 4 quarterbacks taken in the first 8 picks. That means the Bears can still get one of the top 5 just overall position players in the NFL draft this year at number 9. And the Bears still have room now, if a quarterback does fall to 9, for someone to get really aggressive and trade up in that move. It gives them so much flexibility because they solved the biggest need, which is a playmaker for Justin Fields. They got it. And they got a bona fide playmaker. And so now that solves the biggest need. So now everything's on the table. At number 9, you could take offensive line. You could take defensive line edge. You can take a call to trade the pick as well. So you're not like, oh, should we draft Jackson Smith-Njigba? We need a receiver. The media will get angry if we don't get a receiver.
Right.
We don't pick again
they don't need it anymore.
We don't pick again until the late second round. We got to get a receiver, don't we? It takes all of that stress off. So it's massive, massive, massive. And then the Bears have all this flexibility with those picks. Let me read them up. I don't want to screw it up here, and I have it all saved. They have now in the second round, number 53, number 61, and the first pick of the third round, number 64. That's 3 prime picks within 10 of each other. They could trade up 2 of those to get back into the late first round. They could trade up 2 of those to get into the early second round. They could trade 2 of those or 3 of those.
Who's to say, maybe they want to go get to number 6. Maybe they want to trade back up a little bit.
They could trade those picks to get up with the 9th to get
a Will
up again.
Anderson or
They have 10 picks in this draft now. They also have a run of that same great picks, number 103, and then they have number 133, 136, and 148. Same thing, 2 late 4ths and an early 5th. You could trade those to get up in the draft. You could trade those for starters in the league. We just saw Jalen Ramsey go for a 3rd-round pick. So they have a ton of flexibility now, a ton. And that was all before the great signings the Bears have made with 2 starting linebackers, a starting guard, and an edge rusher to help with the kid from the Tennessee. So the Bears have filled 4 starting positions when they had about 9 they needed to fill. And now they have 10 draft picks to go fill the other 5. And all of the people they signed are under 26 years old. Like it's a youth movement. Guys who, we'll talk about Tremaine Edmonds here in a bit, but he's the one they spent big money on. And the big money is a 2-year window. They have him for 4, and they'll be paying him nothing the last 2 years of that deal. So it's flexible, even if it doesn't pan out. It's everything they've done so far is brilliant. Now, I will say this last thought on the Bears side of the draft, then we'll focus on Carolina because I know you have a ton of thoughts on Carolina being in that area and covering it. So my last thoughts on the Bears is this. Knock on wood, and I don't think this is going to happen. I predict Justin Fields to have a big year, and I think he is going to prove why they've invested in him and why he's going to be the Bears quarterback for another 5-year window, like a long time here. But knock on wood, if he has a disastrous year, the Chicago Bears have Carolina's first pick next year and their own. Say the Carolina Panthers, we don't think they're going to be anything electric. They could end up with a top 3 draft pick next year. The Carolina pick could be in the top 5 for sure, probably. It may be high as 1, 2, or 3. And with the Bears, if they don't have a good year, Justin Fields is a bad year, they will end up probably with a top 12 draft pick. So 2 in the top 12 guaranteed. The Bears can get aggressive to go get their guy next year at the quarterback position. If Justin Fields doesn't pan out, I don't think that's going to happen. But on the flip side, if Justin Fields has a terrific year and he leads the Bears to almost the playoffs, and he has a Jalen Hurts type of explosion year, which I think he will, and the Panthers stink, say the Panthers give them the number 1 overall pick next year in a draft with Caleb Williams, the Bears could sell that pick for, imagine the price. Imagine the price a team will pay to get Caleb Williams next year. They could be set up for years to come with future first-round picks. I mean, it is that Panthers first pick next year. If the Panthers stink, if you're a Bears fan, the thing you have to root for is for the Panthers to stink next year, because that pick is worth gold next year. And for them to trade it to get Drake May, for themselves or for someone else. I mean, it is so juicy. Or if it's a top 3 or 5 pick and Darnell Mooney doesn't come back from the injury well and Chase Claypool fans out, you get to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, I mean, it is just like there's so much to be excited for Bears fans. On the flip side, I will read this tweet, and this is my exact thoughts for the Panthers, and I'll let you respond to everything I just said. Okay. This is from John Helmkamp on Twitter. So the Panthers could have drafted Justin Fields when they had Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore. They didn't. They then traded away both stud players, also traded away 2 firsts, 2 seconds to draft a QB now that won't have anyone to throw to. Boy, that was a choice. My biggest thing with the Panthers, I said this on my show on Saturday, I'll say it again. There is monumental pressure on the Panthers to get this right. And I don't know who the right guy is. It's crazy.
It is crazy. There is a lot of pressure to get this right. I mean, certainly if this doesn't pan out, Scott Fitterer is very, very likely on his way out of Carolina as the GM. Frank Reich has some stability there. David Tepper wanted him there, and he'll remain, I imagine. But yeah, Scott Fitterer, this is a huge, huge moment for him, huge draft. Here's how I view it for the Carolina Panthers. That is a haul. And I thought the Bears, my first instinct was, wow, they fleeced them.
Yeah.
But then again, and we've talked about this many, many times. If it works out, if you get CJ Stroud or whoever your guy is, and he's the guy, and it ends up being what Cam Newton was for you, or better, then it's all worth it.
It's all
100% all worth it.
100% agree.
And, most of these quarterbacks too, I know that they're getting better younger and you're expected to compete at a younger age. But if it all did pan out for them, DJ Moore, by the time that they really could rely on him to go to make deep runs into the postseason, would be towards the back half of his prime. And getting later there, you would imagine it takes a couple years for this quarterback to develop. So from that aspect, I understand it as well. They did what they needed to do to be able to get control of the number 1 overall pick and put themselves in that position. The one thing I don't agree with that has been out there as being discussed is reports that they don't know who they want.
Yeah,
I don't
think
agree
that's
with that.
Screen.
Because it's either one of two options for me. If you're making this deal as the Carolina Panthers, you either for sure have the guy that you want at number 1, or you are hell bent on shopping this number 1, recouping picks, and staying within the top 4 or 5 because you like 3 quarterbacks and are confident that you could get one of those 3 if you move down a few picks and still recoup a lot of what you lost in the Bears deal. That to me is a big possibility here for the Panthers. I do think they'll stay at 1 and pick the guy that they want, because I think CJ Stroud, to me, obviously, Bryce Young, most people are talking about as the number 1 overall pick. You and I agree that CJ Stroud, from our perspective, is the best quarterback. So say CJ Stroud is that guy, then they're going to stay there. They're going to pick him, and they're going to be happy because they got their quarterback of their future. They got the coach that can help mold a young quarterback and finally has the freedom of the organization and kind of the direction of the organization. He didn't necessarily have that in Indy. It certainly didn't feel that way. They were trying to shop in quarterback after quarterback to try and fill gaps. Carolina's saying, no, we're gonna be the rebuild here, and we're gonna let you, Frank Reich, take the reins. So those are the two options from my perspective, and I do think that they stick with this number 1 pick, unless they're able to get a trading partner with the Colts. It's the only other way I see this panning out.
Yeah, it's funny. I agree with you wholeheartedly, except for the fact that if they were going to just try to trade up to guarantee they get one of the 3 guys that they like, they could have given up a lot less to get to Arizona at 3. You know what I mean?
Perhaps, but you don't know what Arizona's plan was, because maybe Arizona didn't want to jump back to 9.
Yeah, maybe Arizona's firm in saying that we're not going to move. You
need a team willing to drop back, and we know Houston probably isn't willing, and the Colts were most likely not moving back. They were moving forward. So really that left you with Arizona and Chicago as the 2 kind of trading partners there.
It wouldn't shock me if the Panthers trade, but it would shock me if they went anywhere below the Colts. I agree. I don't see that happening. I think they have a guy. I think there's a lot of smoke screen that, but I also think they do want to hear the calls. I mean, listen, having the number 1 pick, I'm sure Ryan Poles has a little FOMO right now. He got a haul. He got the best deal you possibly could have asked for. Perfect for his team and the future. And as I said, that Panthers first pick next year could be another golden bleeping ticket. I mean, if you start thinking of the possibilities of that pick, it's gigantic. I mean, it is franchise altering, because they could be in a spot where they are just selling picks for years to come because of that 1 pick. But anyways, you just don't give up this much and not have an idea of what exactly you want to do. And I believe that maybe they are debating between 2 guys. If it's 2 guys, then I don't think Levis is in that conversation. I think it's all about Anthony Richardson and either Stroud or Young. And my guess would be
probably
Stroud and Richardson. That's what my guess would be. So we'll see. I think it's absolutely right. If you draft a guy and he has Cam Newton or better career, no one cares that you gave up DJ Moore in this much. Because if you have a Cam Newton or better career, that means you've won an MVP, you've maybe been to a Super Bowl, and you had 7 years where you were kind of the face of the NFL for a time. I mean, Cam Newton was as big as it gets. Now, I'm over, my thoughts. I'm over the whole, a quarterback has to last 10 years. He doesn't. If you get 5 great years out of a quarterback where you are in contention, he wins an MVP, then that's great. I mean, that is what you want and can hope for in the NFL. So we'll see. All I'll say is, as a Bears fan, the last 5 days have been terrific. That trade was brilliant.
They've been
And
busy
now,
too.
as we transition into free agency, they've just nailed it so far. I think they've just been A plus plus plus. And I get it. You see the whole memes. If you weren't with us at 3-14, don't be with us at 6 and whatever. Fine,
Sure.
but it's a building process. The arrow is pointing sky straight forward up for this Bears team, and they didn't have to spend $80 million on McGlinchey, and I'm glad they didn't. I don't know what the Broncos
right. Yeah, that was a lot of money. But obviously the Broncos are trying to do their best to shore up that offensive line with McGlinchey and was it Ben Jones or I'm probably thinking of the wrong name there, but an interesting decision by the Panthers, a very crazy start. It was perfect because it came down. It was Ben Powers, by the way. Crazy kind of way to launch us into the free agency week. The Friday before free agency, Bears drop this bombshell of a trade. They get things going, and of course the Bears then didn't slow up at all, signing 2 linebackers to big mega deals. And I say mega deals, it wasn't, it was very front loaded. So they're ready. They have cap now, so they're going to pay these guys.
But I think good deal, and then another deal that's a bargain.
Yeah. So Tremaine Edmonds and DJ Edwards, they get Edwards from Philly, which Philly losing a lot of guys. I mean, the windows in the league are so short, and this is proof of it. Eagles, best defensive line in the league. They lose Javon Hargrave. He goes to the 49ers. What a defensive front that's going to be. You lose,
they
Darius
just cut
Slay.
Darius Slay.
You cut Darius Slay. And you lose your linebacker in Edwards and
Miles Sanders.
No Miles Sanders anymore. They did get Rashad Penny, an interesting, if he could stay healthy, that could work.
They've lost, and you forget you lose an offensive and defensive coordinator too. I mean, they have lost a ton.
They lost a lot.
So to talk about free agency, we kind of put this together. Listen, we could do a whole show just going over every single move. I think that's a little redundant. To me, I think there are 4 moves that I really am like, oh, these are kind of game-changing moves. And I think you have some as well. So I can get started with my list, and we'll just kind of go back and forth on it. And because listen, there's a bunch of little deals that I think are, they're good deals. Like the Bears signed a 3rd down running back. I like that. The Bears signed a starting guard. I like that a ton, but I don't think it's like, oh my God, let's spend the whole show talking about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm happy with you to start. I imagine the Bucs signing Baker Mayfield is not going to be
that's an honorable mention for me. I have that as an honorable mention.
Fair enough.
I think it's fun to talk about, but it's not game changing. I'll start with number 4, a signing where a team kept a player. Deron Payne stays with the Commanders, 4 years, $90 million. It's the most money a D tackle's gotten besides Aaron Donald. I think it's huge for multiple reasons. I've said this before, and I have to stand by it. Bad franchises, if you hit on a draft pick, you got to keep that guy. Like, you got it. That the only way to build culture. I hated when the Jags just let Jalen Ramsey go. Now, I know they got a lot for him. I hated when the Jets let Adams go, the safety. Yeah, I get it. They got a lot for him. But if you're a bad team and you're trying to build a culture and build an organization, the whole point should be draft good players and keep those good players, right? Especially at prime positions like defensive tackle, edge rusher, offensive line, quarterback, right? Like prime positions. So he's a great, great player. He is now going to spend his prime wrecking offensive lines for your defensive line. I love it for the Commanders. I think, they signed Wiley. That's one of my honorable mention ones. And I think that's a huge, huge keep for them on the defensive line that, hey, we're committed to keeping a great player who we've drafted, we've grown.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good one to start things off with for sure. And I agree with that a lot. For me, I'm going to go with the one I mentioned just not too long ago, Javon Hargrave to the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
Anytime you can get a phenomenal pass rushing nose tackle, which are few and far between, to have someone that athletic and that strong to anchor your defensive line, it is a win. And when we're talking about the 49ers, who you could say what you want about the situation with the quarterbacks recently and everything they've gone through, they have still maintained an ability to be consistently relevant and to find ways to win games. So they get Christian McCaffrey last year. I think he's going to be a staple for them for quite a few years here, at least the next 3 to 4. Get this defensive line, which was already dominant, to get them a, number 2 or 3 true nose in the league, to come to the team and be there with Nick Bosa and company, I think is a phenomenal move. And you're going to compete now. Matt Stafford's coming back with the Rams, and it's obviously it's a passing league, but to be able to dominate in the trenches is huge. It's what the 49ers have done well. Now I'm terrified. I mean, that's like Eagles level defensive line.
Oh, it's crazy.
Eagles level from this past year defensive line over there. And that's going to be a force. So that was one that really stood out to me early on. And obviously I'm partial because he's a former Steeler and I really miss him a lot. But he got the bag and he deserves it.
I'll say this. I mean, the Niners and the Dolphins are the two teams that are trying to prove just build the best rosters humanly possible, and then anyone can play quarterback in that Shanahan system.
Yeah.
And so far, it's worked out for the Niners. I mean, multiple NFC Championship games and they're a Super Bowl appearance, and really they were a Jimmy G overthrow away from proving you can win a Super Bowl, which is building a terrific roster with a perfectly B quarterback. And now you got to find the right B quarterback. That's
Definitely.
Also what's interesting, because Kirk Cousins is the perfect B quarterback, but I would argue he's not the right B quarterback. So it's interesting. I love that move. Speaking of Jimmy G, that's my number 3 to the Raiders. Starting quarterbacks, they deserve to be on this list. What to me is so fascinating about this is that is he the committed, we're going to start with Jimmy G and not bring anyone else in, or will the Raiders also go out, and if an Anthony Richardson is on the board still, or a Will Levis is on the board still at 7, will they snag him up? Like, that to me is going to be really interesting, because Jimmy G in the AFC West with Mahomes, with Wilson, and with Herbert, you're bringing a knife to a gunfight. And so I also just feel like, listen, McDaniels is he's proving that once again, he doesn't understand, I think, how important it is to not just like piss guys off. The Darren Waller thing, it appears to be a trade because he didn't fit my system of culture. The Derek Carr thing seems to be as well, as we traded him because he doesn't fit our culture. I really worry about stuff like that. Derek Carr to me is a better quarterback than Jimmy G. And you moved on from him to give Jimmy G, decent money. This is going to be another interesting storyline for the Raiders, but also for Jimmy G. He gets now a kind of a home for 3 years, whether they draft a guy or not. He's going to kind of be playing maybe the same role in San Francisco. We'll see.
Yeah. It was peculiar. I saw, I forget who tweeted it out, but they said trading or acquiring Jimmy G for Derek Carr is like acquiring Derek Carr for Jimmy G. And I was like, yeah, that pretty much like sums it up. I mean, they're very similar players. I mean, I get that, like, he's considered a system fit for Josh McDaniels, but yeah, it was a little bizarre of a move. But then again, we knew Jimmy G was going to end up somewhere, and so hey, why not in Vegas with his former offensive coordinator with the New England Patriots? Kind of makes sense. It was just, I don't know what the Raiders are doing, and once again, they continue to be kind of making lateral moves instead of propelling themselves forward, it seems. And Darren Waller to the Giants certainly was an interesting one there too. But I'm going to pick for my next one. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to do just Miami's quick run of signings. Mike White, quality backup.
Yep.
Awesome there to get yourself
You
some
need
insurance.
a backup.
You need a backup. And you need a backup that can operate well within what they do. And
Hold
I
the
think
fort.
Mike White is a guy that clearly has like the moxie and the, you know, the ability to
A little
work within that
Fitzmagic.
system, to not demand so much, right, from his position. I think that's a great one. David Long from the Titans, the linebacker. Miami's, you know, defense had its moments last year where it just was, you know, a little rough. And so to get a really, really good linebacker in David Long, solid move. And then obviously to just part with a third and to get Jalen Ramsey.
Huge.
And, you know, one of your biggest liabilities was your, you know, defensive backfield. You get Jalen Ramsey there. This team is coming at you fast. And I think the Dolphins, you know, if Tua stays healthy and does what, you know, they have wanted from him for the past couple of years, this is going to be a dangerous team moving forward as well. And they have to be able to compete in the AFC East now, especially an AFC East that now carries with it Aaron Rodgers potentially, Jalen Ramsey, a really good pickup to face off against a Josh Allen and an Aaron Rodgers, you know, 4 times a year.
They're going oppo. They're going stacked roster and pay nothing for the quarterback. They picked up Tua's 5th year, and I think that's part of it. It's part of their plan. We are going to commit to not paying a quarterback big money and ride this out. And I have a feeling that Miami in 2 years from now is going to be drafting a quarterback, and they're going to just kind of do this thing and keep it rolling. And until they maybe hit on, you know, a guy that becomes like, a Justin Herbert or something huge. I love that. I'm going to go with simple one. The Eagles keep Kelsey 1 year, $13 million.
Yeah.
They bled so much to be able to just keep that heart and soul of your team on a 1 year, $13 million deal. He's worth every penny. I love them being able to keep Kelsey. The Eagles still, as of right now, I feel are the best team in the NFC East. I think they're going to take a step back. But I think the Eagles, as of right now, that move helps, you know, temper. Their offense is still really solid. Their defense lost a lot, but they have draft picks. They have capital to rebuild a younger defense and to outscore anyone in the NFC still. So I think that's huge for them.
Absolutely. And, you know, for me, I'm going to go on the offensive line and stay there with your Jason Kelsey, and I see that, and I raise you a Jawan Taylor for the Kansas City Chiefs. The problem with offensive tackles and free agents is they always yield way higher price tags than what they're worth, but that's just because of the premium of the position and the scarcity of great talent there throughout the years. So getting a young offensive tackle that's dominant in year 2 or 3 is one of the most important things you can have in the NFL. Retaining that guy, getting a little bit better deal. So yes, they shell out an $80 million contract for Jawan Taylor, but Orlando Brown hitting free agency, Chiefs had to find a way to keep pace, because if your offensive line starts to deteriorate, you know, that's the first step to Patrick Mahomes having to be the hero, which we know he's capable of, but constantly week in and week out can be daunting for a quarterback, regardless of how good they are. And it puts them at risk of getting injured. And then, you know, your franchise goes into the, you know, shitter at that point. So to be able to find a quick quality replacement and get some, you know, good years out of that replacement, I think it was pretty key for the Chiefs there. And, you know, they didn't do a whole lot. They lose Juju Smith-Schuster to the Patriots today, but I think that was a good stopgap for them to kind of stop the bleeding, so to speak, and be able to get a quality guy in there at tackle.
2 years ago, the Chiefs were coming off a Super Bowl loss to the Buccaneers, and it was because their tackles fell apart injury.
Yes.
Schwartz, and I can't think of the other guy's
Fisher.
Name. Fisher, the former first-round pick, and they got rid of them, and they got 2 new tackles, Wiley and Brown. They played great the last 2 years, and they won a Super Bowl. Wiley's gone. He's in Washington with Bieniemy. And then Brown, it looks like, is going to be signed somewhere for right tackle money, not left tackle money, a deal similar to more what Wiley got. And I'm still holding hope that my Bears can get a deal like that done with Brown. I think that would be incredible value. And so if you're the Chiefs, you don't need a ton. So go out, spend on a new star left tackle, and then draft a new right tackle, draft a wide receiver, and the Chiefs are fine. They've reset. The Chiefs have draft picks. So let them, they're going to take, you have in your first, second, and third round picks. I expect the Chiefs to take a wide receiver and an offensive tackle. And then every couple of years, if that's what you have to do, is just, well, you have Mahomes retool a right or left tackle, retool a new receiver to bring in. I think it's brilliant for the Chiefs to do. My final one, you know where I'm going, Tremaine Edmonds. He's such a playmaker and a difference maker for the Bills. I think the Bills are going to really, their good defense is taking a huge step back. And the Bears, what I love so much about this is he's going to be 26 when the season starts. So he's in his middle of his prime, and you have a 4-year deal. Yes, it's $50 million guaranteed, but that's within the first 2 years, $72 million total. If Tremaine Edmonds is a total dud and it doesn't work out, which I don't think it's going to be, you can move on from this in 2 years and it does not kill you, and you're not just still eating, Tremaine Edmonds' bad deal. It's a brilliant negotiated deal. He comes in with Edwards, who's on a pennies of a deal. He's a tackling machine. And now the Bears have their remade linebacker core. And it allows, again, the Bears, because they got DJ Moore and they got their 2 linebackers, for them to focus all of their efforts now on another offensive lineman and then a whole new defensive front. Defensive tackles, defensive edge rushers, young, and they can put a ton of capital in that. Edmonds is going to be a gigantic playmaker for them. You got to remember, in the NFC too, he was a nightmare for AFC quarterbacks. Think about what he's going to do to NFC quarterbacks. I just think it's the right time. He's on the right trajectory with the Bears, and he fits the Bears' current scheme better than Roquan did.
Thing.
And you were able to get him and Edwards for the price of Roquan. I mean, it's what a home run. What a home run.
A big, tall linebacker like that, hard to get, footballs over them in the middle of the field. And that's a huge aspect of it. Roquan, for how great he is a lot better at running down, the running backs behind the line of scrimmage than he is trailing someone in coverage and trying to get his hands up and break up the pass. Edmonds kind of brings that quality to the table. And yeah, I think he fits that system extremely well. They needed multiple linebackers to work within that, and it looks like they've got that going with Edwards and Edmonds. So finally, I'm going to go back to the offensive line again. And this is for a little bit different of a reason, but the Broncos getting Mike McGlinchey and guard Ben Powers. Now, I think they definitely overspent for McGlinchey. 5 years, nearly $88 million. That is a lot of money. And I know that there's probably either like a void in there or it's, weighted a certain way. I don't know the specific details of the contract, but that's a lot of money. Nonetheless,
I'm glad the Bears did not sign that contract. Very glad.
Despite the Bears having so much cap space, you still don't want to hamstring yourself in that way. That being said, the Broncos are in a position here where it's a little bit tough. They don't have draft picks.
Yeah,
they gave away a draft pick for Sean Taylor. They gave away a boatload of picks for Russell Wilson. This team needs to win today. And how are they going to do that when Russell Wilson, I believe, was the most sacked quarterback last year? Or he was in the bottom 5.
Justin Fields was I think the most.
Okay. So Russell Wilson, though, was heavily sacked. And
yes.
To be in this situation for the Denver Broncos, brand new coach Sean Payton, he wants to control the reins. And obviously he's an offensive side of the ball guy. The defense is relatively intact. Like, they have a lot of good pieces there, and they've got some weapons, but they got to be able to protect their quarterback to make any of this work, especially in the Sean Payton system, right? Yeah. With kind of how he operates. So with all of that being said, they needed to get a tackle in there. They needed to overhaul that offensive line, and
Agreed.
They do it with 2 of these signings here. Spend a lot of money, yes. Are they going to be a little bit tight? Yeah, they are. But if you believe that Sean Payton is going to get Russell Wilson to where he needs to be, then all you need to worry about is getting Russell Wilson the protection he needs to get the ball in the hands of Sutton, Judy, and whoever else, ends up being on this squad offensively. So I thought that was a good move for them to not just sit back and say, well, we're just going to let Sean, bear the brunt of everything. No, we're going to be active and we're going to go and be aggressive and get these guys.
They had money to spend and they don't have the draft pick. So they had to be more aggressive in free agency to get the guys they needed. I just want to give one more honorable mention. I'm pumped for Montgomery to get good money. I mean, $11 million guaranteed from Detroit, 3-year deal, $18 million he can max earn. He's such a great dude, a terrific player, and he's going to a system that values the running back. So him and Swift, I just hope my new overhaul defense doesn't get torched by him 2 times a year, because that'll hurt, because I love David Montgomery. Shout out to him. Happy for the Lions to make a move like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. I guess the one shout out, we kind of talked about it, Darren Waller to the Giants. I didn't completely understand it because Daniel Bellinger played pretty well last year. And I thought he was blossoming, but hey,
need weapons now
you need weapons
to make Daniel Jones work. They're in the same boat as the Giants. I mean, the Niners, where it's we got to build a great roster. The problem is they've spent a lot of money on Daniel Jones. So now it's about finding guys who work in the cap. They're in a tricky spot, but this was a great move for them, I think.
Yeah. Well, with only an hour now into free agency, we'll see kind of what happens, because obviously Lamar Jackson's the next big ball to drop, you would imagine. So to find out any news about that is going to be interesting. Hopefully we'll have something to talk about in that regard next week, but we will have something regardless to talk about as the news keeps on flowing. We got Ezekiel Elliott on his way out of Dallas, and Austin Eckler requesting trades, and quite a few different things happening, of course, throughout the league that we didn't touch on today's episode, kind of highlighting the big button topics, which of course were Aaron Rodgers and the first overall pick trade.
Totally.
But we got plenty to get to, and we got plenty of time before the draft. So looking forward to the rest of the way, getting some of those items there and some more interviews as well. So that will wrap it up for us here on the Football Lounge with Mark and Dan. Stay tuned for some more free agency frenzy on the way.